The sun rose over New York City, casting a warm glow on the skyscrapers. It was a crisp, clear Tuesday morning, September 11, 2001. The city that never sleeps was waking up. Commuters crowded subways heading to work. Tourists looked up in awe at the majestic Twin Towers. It was an ordinary day. No one could have imagined the horror that was about to unfold. The sky held a promise of a beautiful autumn day, but within hours it would be filled with smoke and debris. The world was about to change. As smoke billowed from the gaping hole in the North Tower, the world was plunged into a state of shock and disbelief. The once bustling financial hub of New York City was now a scene of chaos and devastation. The North Tower, a symbol of American prosperity and resilience, was now marred by a massive, smoking wound. News crews rushed to the scene, their cameras capturing the unfolding tragedy. Reporters with somber expressions relayed the grim news to a global audience. The air was thick with tension and uncertainty as journalists tried to make sense of the incomprehensible events. The world watched in horror on live television. People gathered around screens in homes, offices, and public spaces, their faces etched with fear and disbelief. The images broadcasted were surreal, like scenes from a disaster movie, but this was all too real. Then, just 17 minutes later, another plane appeared on the horizon, its trajectory unmistakably aimed at the South Tower. The sight of the second plane sent waves of panic and dread through the hearts of onlookers. United Airlines Flight 175, also from Boston, this one heading to Los Angeles as well, slammed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. The impact was catastrophic, sending a fireball and debris raining down onto the streets below. This time the impact was lower, between the 77th and 85th floors. The South Tower, like its twin, was now engulfed in flames, its structural integrity compromised. The world watched in stunned silence as fire engulfed both towers. This was no accident. America was under attack. The realization that this was a coordinated act of terror sent shockwaves across the globe. The nation held its breath. In that moment, time seemed to stand still as the gravity of the situation sank in. People clung to each other, seeking comfort in the face of unimaginable horror. The Pentagon, the very symbol of American military might, was also targeted. The heart of the nation's defense was now in the crosshairs of the attackers. At 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77, flying from Dulles International Airport outside of Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles, crashed into the west side of the Pentagon. The impact was devastating, causing a massive explosion and a fire that would burn for hours. A section of the building collapsed, leaving a gaping hole in the side of the Pentagon. The attack on the Pentagon was a direct assault on the nation's military command center. The smell of jet fuel and burning debris filled the air. The scene was one of utter devastation, with smoke and flames billowing from the wreckage. The scale of the attacks was unprecedented. The destruction was on a level never before seen on American soil. The aftermath left a scar on the nation that would take years to heal. America was facing an enemy unlike any it had encountered before. The resilience and unity of the American people would be tested in the days, weeks, and years to come. The events of September 11, 2001 would forever change the course of history, leaving an indelible mark on the collective memory of the world. In New York City, the streets surrounding the World Trade Center were scenes of chaos and courage. The air was thick with smoke, and the sounds of sirens and screams filled the atmosphere. People were running in every direction, trying to escape the unfolding nightmare. The once bustling streets were now a battleground, a place where fear and bravery collided. First responders, police officers, firefighters, and paramedics raced towards the burning towers. They moved with a sense of urgency and determination, knowing that every second counted. These brave men and women were the city's lifeline, rushing into danger while others fled. Their commitment to saving lives was unwavering, even in the face of overwhelming odds. They climbed stairwells, carrying heavy equipment, their faces covered in soot. The heat was intense and the smoke made it difficult to see and breathe. Yet they pressed on, driven by a sense of duty and the hope of finding survivors. Each step was a testament to their courage and resilience as they navigated the treacherous conditions inside the towers. Their mission to save as many lives as possible. They worked tirelessly, pulling people from the rubble, administering first aid, and providing comfort to the injured. Their actions were a beacon of hope amidst the darkness, a reminder that even in the worst of times humanity can shine through. Ordinary citizens, covered in dust and debris, helped each other escape the falling debris. Strangers became allies, united by a common goal of survival. They formed human chains, guided each other to safety, and shared whatever resources they had. In those moments, the barriers that often divide us were broken down, replaced by a sense of solidarity and compassion. Stories of bravery and selflessness emerged from the ashes, tales of individuals who risked their lives to save others, who put the needs of strangers above their own, became a source of inspiration. These acts of heroism were not limited to the first responders. They were seen in the actions of everyday people who rose to the occasion in extraordinary ways. Amidst the chaos, a sense of unity emerged. Strangers helped strangers. People who had never met before found themselves working together, supporting each other through the crisis. This sense of community, of coming together in the face of adversity, was a powerful force that helped many to cope with the trauma of that day. People shared bottles of water and offered words of comfort. Small gestures of kindness made a big difference, providing much-needed relief and reassurance. In the midst of the horror, these acts of compassion were a reminder of the goodness that exists in the world. They showed that even in the darkest times there is light to be found in the human spirit. The city's spirit, though shaken, was not broken. New Yorkers showed incredible resilience, coming together to support one another and begin the long process of healing. The strength and determination of the people were evident in the days and weeks that followed, as they worked to rebuild their lives and their city. The attacks on 9/11 brought out the best in humanity in the face of unspeakable evil. Acts of kindness and bravery were seen everywhere, from the first responders who risked their lives to the ordinary citizens who stepped up to help. These moments of humanity were a powerful counterpoint to the violence and destruction, showing that love and compassion can prevail even in the darkest times. The images of that day, seared into our collective memory, serve as a reminder of both the fragility of life and the indomitable spirit of those who risk their lives to save others. These images, though painful, also capture the strength and resilience of the human spirit. They remind us of the courage and selflessness that emerged in the face of unimaginable tragedy, and they inspire us to carry forward the legacy of those who gave their all on that fateful day. President George W. Bush was reading to school children in Florida when he received news of the attacks. His face, captured in photographs, conveyed the shock and disbelief of a nation. The images of the planes hitting the towers played on loop on television screens across the country. The nation was in mourning. The world was in mourning. The magnitude of the attacks was difficult to grasp. In the hours after the attacks, President Bush addressed the nation. He declared war on terrorism. He vowed to hunt down those responsible for the attacks. He ordered the grounding of all flights in and out of the United States. It was the largest grounding of civilian aircraft in history. The world watched and waited, anxious about what would come next. The attacks had fundamentally changed the course of history. The world would never be the same. At 9:59 a.m., after burning for 56 minutes, the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed. The event was witnessed by millions around the globe as news channels broadcasted the horrifying scene live. The tower, once a symbol of economic power and architectural marvel, succumbed to the intense heat and structural damage caused by the impact of the hijacked plane. The collapse, captured on live television, sent a massive cloud of dust and debris across lower Manhattan. The ground shook as if an earthquake had struck. The dust cloud, thick and suffocating, enveloped the streets, buildings, and people, turning the bustling city into a scene of chaos and confusion. Visibility dropped to near zero and the air became unbreathable. The air filled with the sounds of sirens and the cries of those who had lost loved ones. Emergency responders rushed to the scene, their faces etched with determination and fear. The streets were filled with people running, crying, and searching for safety. The sense of panic was palpable. As the reality of the attack began to sink in, the world watched in horror as the once mighty tower crumbled into a pile of rubble. The South Tower's collapse was not just a physical destruction, but a symbolic one, representing the vulnerability of even the most powerful nations. The debris and dust settled, leaving behind a landscape that was unrecognizable. Less than 30 minutes later, at 10:28 a.m., the North Tower also collapsed. The second tower's fall was equally catastrophic, if not more so, as it had been burning for a longer period. The structural integrity had been severely compromised, and the inevitable collapse was a devastating blow. The collapse of the North Tower was even more devastating than the South Tower, as it had been burning for a longer period. The intense heat weakened the steel framework, leading to its ultimate failure. The sight of the North Tower falling was a moment of collective heartbreak, as the world realized the full extent of the tragedy. The dust cloud from the collapse engulfed Lower Manhattan, turning day into night. The once vibrant and lively streets were now shrouded in darkness and despair. The dust settled slowly, leaving a thick layer of ash and debris over everything. The city that never sleeps was brought to a standstill. The collapse of the towers left a gaping hole in the New York City skyline. The iconic Twin Towers, which had stood tall and proud, were now gone, leaving an emptiness that was both physical and emotional. The skyline, once a symbol of ambition and progress, now served as a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the impact of violence. It also left a gaping hole in the hearts of Americans and people around the world. The loss was not just of buildings but of thousands of innocent lives. Families were torn apart, and communities were left to grapple with the overwhelming grief. The sense of loss was profound and far-reaching. The world mourned the loss of innocent lives. Memorials and vigils were held across the globe, as people came together to honor the victims and show solidarity. The tragedy transcended borders, uniting humanity in a shared sense of sorrow and resilience. The world mourned the loss of a sense of security. The attacks shattered the illusion of safety and invulnerability, leading to a new era of heightened security measures and global vigilance. The events of that day changed the course of history, leaving an indelible mark on the collective consciousness of the world. The days and weeks following the attacks were a time of immense grief and anger. The nation came together to mourn the nearly 3,000 lives lost in the attacks. Candlelight vigils were held in cities and towns across the country. American flags were displayed everywhere. The attacks had touched every corner of the nation. From the ashes of the attacks, a sense of unity emerged. Americans reached out to their neighbors, offering comfort and support. They donated blood, volunteered their time, and contributed to relief efforts. The attacks had shaken the nation to its core, but they had also revealed its resilience. The American spirit, though wounded, was not broken.